perverted. I'm obsessed and deranged. I have existed for years, but very little has changed. I'm the tool of the government and industry too, for I am destined to rule and regulate you. I might be vile and pernicious, but you can't look away. I make you think I'm delicious with the stuff that I say. I'm the best you can get. Have you guessed me yet? I'm the slime oozing out from your... Take it away, Don Pardo!
You will obey me while I lead you, and eat the garbage that I feed you, until the day that we don't need you. Don't go for help, no one will heed you. Your mind is totally controlled. It has been stuffed into my mold, and you will do as you are told, until the rights to you are sold. Take it away, Frank!
That's right, folks, don't touch that dial. I am the slime from the video, moving along on the video. I am the slime from the video.
It's me, Frank! I am slime!
I am the slime from the video. That's right, Don! Moving along on the video. I am the slime from the video. Can't stop the slime, people letting me know.
You're one of the most accomplished musicians active today. Why don't you sit down and write a top 40 hit song sometime?
I could do it if I wanted, but even if I did, the chances of it getting played on a top 40 radio station are not very good.
Why is that?
Because of the attitudes of programmers, and there's a certain political rigmarole that one must go through in order to have a top 40 record, including special types of presents to certain people in the industry. And that's something that I don't wish to be involved in.
You said rock and roll was only for people who were cute at one point. Do you think rock and roll is still for people who are simply cute?
It's more for people who are cute now than it ever was before, because it's virtually impossible to get a record contract if you look normal and ugly. You may play great and sing great, but if you're not cute, you can't get a contract now because it's the world of videos. It's easier to get a contract now if you can't sing and you can't play, but you look good, because they can always hire somebody to sing your song for you. You've seen that happening over and over and over again. Every hit that you hear on the record, on the radio, who's really singing it? Who's doing it? Because the person that you see in the video is dancing and looking good with nice clothes and everything, and it's all fake. There's no question about it. Hell in a handbasket.
Frank, you've given up hope.
The Sykes-Picot arrangement, whatever it was.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, it's really depressing. If you stop and think about trying to get people to pay attention to what the government is doing, or actually taking some personal involvement in it, it's hopeless, because even if you got them to register, they don't know enough about what's going on to make a decision after they've registered. So maybe it's for the best if they don't register.
So how do they become more informed? I mean, they become a news addict like you? And that news is so skewed anyway.
Well, I'm watching the same skewed news that's available to everybody else. I don't have any kind of secret information that comes filtering into my house. But what I've learned to do over the years is subtract the spin. And so if you flip from channel to channel and see the different ways a story is covered, you can average it out and get some idea of what's going on. And then the fact that certain stories are reported at all is very suspicious. And you learn to spot these, why are they talking about this now?
Let's talk about things on television. CNN. What do you think of CNN?
I started watching CNN when you didn't have to pay for it. Now they're scrambling it and you have to pay to see all this right-wing hogwash they hand you. But CNN started off as a very good idea. You could see news all the time, and then it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it started going more and more and more to the right. And I think that right now, in order to watch CNN and extract news, you have to read between the lines so much and filter out all the speculation that they include in the news stories. I mean, showing the pictures and telling people what happened, cut and dried, that's the news.
Yeah.
But when you force a person who is a participant in the news story to speculate on what it really means, I think that's pushing it, and they stay on that stuff too much.
Now, I've actually seen you on CNN.
Yeah, sure, I've been on there. In fact, they interviewed me the other day. I put a thing in my book about CNN and how I think they've gone down the tubes, and they interviewed me about that, and I told the same thing to them.
Yeah.
But let me give you an example of a CNN technique, okay? Once upon a time, there was a news story that was announced by the anchor like this. Dan Quayle will now be involved more in government policy-making decisions. So what do we see for videotape? Here's George Bush. He's wearing a white shirt, he's got his sleeves rolled up, he's holding a box of popcorn. And he's in a movie theater. And behind him, in the darkness, is Dan Quayle, walking around like a little clone in the background. And right behind George Bush is Dan Aykroyd and Kim Basinger. And obviously they are at the premiere of a movie called My Stepmother is an Alien. Now, this is a Weintraub Entertainment Group film. And Mr. Weintraub and Mr. Bush are friends. I did some research. I found out how this story came about. George called Weintraub and said, "Do you have a movie?" He needed a little promotional thing to stick on the air. This is obviously a plug for a movie, and it's introduced as a story about Dan Quayle. Now that's an abuse of the news, I think.
Yeah.
Niggas scared of the truth when it looks at you hard. It's like MK Ultra controlling your brain. Suggestive thinking causing your perspective to change. They want to rearrange the whole point of view in the ghetto. The fourth branch of the government want us to settle. A bandana full of glittering generality, fighting for freedom and fighting terror. But what's reality? Martial law is coming soon to the hood to kill yo while you hanging your flag out your project window. Yeah. The fourth branch of the government, aka the media, seems to now have a retirement plan for ex-military officials, as if their opinion was at all unbiased. A machine shouldn't speak for men, so shut the fuck up, you mindless drone. And you know it's serious when these same media outfits are spending millions of dollars on a PR campaign to try to convince you they're fair and balanced, when they're some of the most ignorant and racist people giving that type of mentality a safe haven. We act like we share in the spoils of war that they do. We die in wars, we don't get the contracts to make money off them afterwards. We don't get weapons contracts, nigga. We don't get cheap labor for our companies, nigga. We are cheap labor, nigga. Turn off the news and read, nigga. Read.
Identity theft is one of the biggest fears facing computer users today. Just ask Jessica Sweedler, who lost her identity from a new threat called phishing.
I was pretty surprised, actually, because the email looked so authentic. And I get things like that all the time.
Jessica is not alone. Phishing is one of the fastest growing cybercrimes, according to law enforcement.
Viruses spread by email and the damage they can do to your computer.
But now Jim Lawrence tells us a new email threat could attack your bank account.
Identity theft is one of the biggest fears facing computer users today. Just ask Jessica Sweedler, who lost her identity from a new threat called phishing.
I was pretty surprised, actually, because the email looked so authentic. And I get things like that all the time.
Jessica is not alone. Phishing is one of the fastest growing cybercrimes, according to law enforcement officials. One computer company reported that nearly 60,000 phishing.
Another project of yours is called ThingFish, which is about, as I understand it, sexually transmitted disease, particularly amongst homosexuals. I mean, I would say it was AIDS, if you like.
Well, in this thing, it's called the mystery disease, but it's quite obvious that it is an AIDS-like disease, and it's been manufactured on purpose, and it's being transmitted on purpose, and the purpose is to rid the planet of certain people. I believe that AIDS, in reality, is not a natural accident. It's not a natural disease that just sort of evolved. Somebody cooked it up. I think that it's something that either escaped from a genetic engineering laboratory or something that was manufactured on purpose in a genetic engineering laboratory to somebody's specifications. I also believe that all the warfare of the future will be conducted with these biological agents, because now that gene splicing is a thing that can be done, it is feasible to consider the preparation of certain diseases which will kill only specific races, nationalities, or people with certain interests, because you can tailor the disease to attack certain things in certain categories.
Well, these are very serious allegations, Frank. I mean, what actually makes you believe this? Do you have hard and fast evidence that this is the case, or is it just something that you've theorized?
No, this is just the opinion of an aging buffoon. You know, just think nothing of it.
So, you think that possibly America or any other country in the world could increase its power and its standing internationally by actually utilizing these agents?
Let's look at the world the way it really is. Government is a joke. Governments don't do anything. That's like a cardboard cutout that hides where the real machinery is. The world is a place that does business. The world is run by multinational businesses that mostly sell weapons to each other. Then you have sugar business, oil business, coal business, you know, business. And when the guys who run these things say jump, all governments jump. And it's foolish to consider the possibility of nuclear war because from a business standpoint, it's impractical. It stops all business. So, the way you have to look at it is the chances are much more likely that the sales will continue of missile delivery systems, but what will be in the warheads will not be things that destroy real estate. It's much more practical to think of missiles going someplace and putting out chemicals or microbes that enable the one party to subjugate the other party by controlling its labor force while leaving the buildings intact. So you've subjugated them and now you got a bonus, you have their machinery, you got this, you got that. And I believe that there's somebody sitting in an office someplace that's working on it, and that's the practical way to do it. You can scream about nuclear war and you have people running around with signs and stuff like that, but I don't believe there will ever be a nuclear war, because it's just impractical from a business sense. Meanwhile, the companies that are building delivery systems are making plenty of money, billions of dollars, because the money goes into small arms, delivery systems, medium-sized arms. Their commerce is still going on, and that's why they're alive. That's what they love to do.
I'm sure that everybody must know by now, maybe it's a little late for some of you to know, that there is a some sort of strange national effort to bring censorship to first the rock and roll industry, then to the video industry, then the National Council of Churches wants to have ratings on normal television programming, and then it'll get to books, and then it'll get to any kind of sign you want to carry around the street, and then you'll all be wearing the same color clothes, and I don't think you're all going to learn how to speak Chinese, but I think that they all want you to sort of worship the same God.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I believe that most people in the United States are smart enough to realize that if a parent does not want their children to hear objectionable material, they have many alternatives. 1, don't buy a record at all. 2, shop in the children's section. Get your 8 or 9-year-old child a Smurf record or something like that. 3, buy instrumental music. Have you ever thought of letting your children hear jazz or classical music?
Voluntarily labeling in no way infringes upon First Amendment rights. Labeling is little more than truth in packaging, by now a time-honored principle in our free enterprise system. And without labeling, parental guidance is virtually impossible.
What I suspect is that because rock and roll music reaches so many different people, and it does reach them on a repetitive level, and it does form an important part of their life, if you can control that medium, you are going to be able to control the ideas which go out to those young people. And there are some people who don't want to have young people thinking too much, because you got to keep them really stupid to buy certain products and to vote for certain people.
You have the right